So you downloaded Pavlov because you saw some dank John Wick compilation on YouTube. Now what? Well, to start off, you're going to find yourself in a mountaintop office with a bunch of weapons on a table, a bunch of words on the wall over there. At the time of the creation of this video, Pavlov is in Alpha 0.40.1, and over here you can find patch notes that give you helpful information about what has been fixed and what patch you're on right now. Over here you also have some useful information for the Vive, but it also helps you with Oculus controls as well. And let's go ahead and talk about that right now. Normally when you start off, it'll have this thing that says main menu, and it tells you what to use to open your main menu. In this case I'm using an Oculus, so you use the trigger button and Y. Now that's how you do it with Oculus, but if you're using Vive, you're going to use your menu button and the trigger, and if you're on Windows Mixed Reality, you're going to use the menu button on the left hand with your trigger as well. Great. Now that we know how to open the menu, there are four options right here. Play online, play offline, which you can play against bots, settings, or exit, obviously. Great. Now before we get into the meat and potatoes of this section, there are a few resources online that will help you a huge deal when you're playing this video game. You can check out the Wiki, you can check out the Discord, and you can check out the subreddit for Pavlov VR. All of these resources are great. Make sure that you play by the rules and engage with the community and learn more about this game that way too. The Wiki has a ton of useful information, including how to play using Pavlov TV, which is a bit of a new feature, and we'll give you information about new releases, updates, patches, and all that kind of information as well. So I'll link those below. But for now, let's go ahead and talk about this. I know you're itching to play online and play offline. Let's talk about settings before you start. This is going to impact the quality of your gaming experience a great deal. You can access these settings from in the game if I'm not mistaken, but let's go ahead and take a look here. So you have four tabs: video, general, player, and input, scaling, anti-alias, textures, effects. All these have to do obviously with the video quality. I have these at medium, but you can set them all the way up to ultra depending on your hardware. This is pretty straightforward. I don't think there's anybody that doesn't understand how this works. Now, as a general rule, the higher these settings are, the better quality you're going to have in terms of graphics. You can also check auto detect, and it'll tell you automatically what settings are best for your specific system. Now, if you go to the general tab, this has some of the more important things along with player and input. These are the more useful aspects of the settings menu. Now, first you have swap hands. Not very useful. Basically, this is better for Vive users. It literally swaps which hands are which, so this is actually my left hand and this is actually my right hand, but as you can see they're swapped, so let's turn that off. I don't use it. Now if you do auto hand swap, it does the same exact thing except automatically instead of turning it on by default. So let's keep that unchecked. Reset tutorial basically resets the tutorial in game, or like in this lobby area, except it turns off automatically for some reason, so leave that alone. Low quality audio, leave that unchecked, you don't really need it. Force no processing, that is on by default generally, and basically when your game is rendered, post-processing allows it to render more frames after the initial render. So that's on by default, or this setting is on by default so that it doesn't use more processing power. Left eye rendering is off by default because basically left eye rendering lets you see what your left eye sees when other people are watching your gameplay. Normally you're going to want to see the right eye rendering. Let's go to the player tab real fast. Okay, so I'm right-handed, so I have that checked. OOB locomotion, so that stands for out of body locomotion, and that's better for players who experience motion sickness. I think it's broken right now, so leave that off. Free spectating is useful. After you get killed in game, you can actually zoom out and look at the map from above and zoom in and look at like people over the shoulder. Arm kill feed is, I think, for the competitive mode. You can actually see people's kills through their arm camera. Auto ungrip lets your weapon basically ungrip based on how far away your hand is from it, although it doesn't seem to be working here. Yeah. Let me see, let me try it with the sidearm. Very strange. Okay, let's leave that alone. Yeah, auto ungrip I think might be broken. I don't use it anyway. Use virtual stock is useful if you're not used to VR rifles just yet. Essentially, if you have it off, let's turn it off for now, and you start firing, right? You can move around your rifle all sorts of ways, right? But if you turn on the virtual stock, instead of 2 points, this one, it'll have one on your shoulder as well, which makes it a little bit easier for aiming at long distances, but pretty bad if you're aiming at a short distance. I actually never use it, so auto sprint is very useful. So the way sprinting works in this game is whether you have a rifle or a sidearm, you aim down and then you move forward. With auto sprint enabled, it automatically allows you to sprint whenever your weapon is aimed down. So let's stand over here and we'll do a little test. So this is movement normally, right? We turn around and we do this, and you're automatically sprinting. Keep that on. Light footstep haptic. So haptic refers to the rumble in your controllers. So if you have light footstep haptic, it gives you feedback that you're walking slowly. Let's go. We covered that stuff. Good. Let's go to input. I leave main hand, off hand alone. I don't mess with those settings. Artificial turn and smooth turn. Let's talk about that. So now I have both of those disabled, which means that I can only physically turn to look left and right. And as a matter of fact, yeah, I can't actually look around. Now it's worth noting you can play this game seated. In fact, I don't have a lot of space, so a lot of the time I play seated. Now if you turn on artificial turn, it lets you turn in segments. So this is pretty useful. Especially if you have motion sickness, this is a lot easier than smooth turning. And if you turn on smooth turning, you can adjust how quickly you turn smoothly. So let's say you put it on 15, you can very barely. I actually keep it all the way up because I don't get nauseous, and you can turn very quickly, and it's very useful for turning fast. So see, it's a little bit more useful that way. Let's turn off smooth turn and see how to do that. So you have to really kind of time it if you have the artificial turning enabled. Yeah. So again, without artificial or smooth turn, you have to turn your entire body to go in the direction that you want. That's definitely not something that I would advise. Artificial turn is turning in segments, like this. And then smooth turn is, as it sounds, you turn smoothly just like you would in a normal video game. Now, inventory lock. Inventory keeps your inventory in the same place relative to your headset. So, if you turn that off, your inventory kind of flies all over the place if your headset moves. So keep that on. Head locomotion, that has to do with walking in the direction that your headset is facing. So even though I am doing smooth turning, head locomotion allows me to go in the direction of my headset as well. So right now I'm pressing forward on my thumbstick, but I can actually turn left and right depending on where my head is aiming as well. Which means that because I have smooth locomotion turned on, or smooth turn turned on, I can actually move even faster by looking in that direction and running in that direction as well. So it gives you very good response times. Swap locomotion hand, basically it's exactly what it sounds like. Your locomotion and aiming are now switched. So now my left hand controls where I look and my right hand controls going forward and backward, which I would say turn off. So these are the settings that I use. Let's go from video. I actually play on medium, especially when I stream, or high. So let's apply those settings. I don't have any of these turned on, except for force no post-processing, allows things to load up a little bit faster. This is the settings that I use for this. I would definitely recommend not using virtual stock unless you're very new and you're trying to figure it out. Input, artificial turn, smooth turn, I have it all the way up. Inventory lock, head locomotion, and I don't mess with these settings at all. Alright, excellent. So now let's actually talk about the game itself. If we play offline, we can select the game mode. There are 4 main game modes: Team Deathmatch, Search and Destroy, Gun Game, and Deathmatch. And here are your maps. I actually have a whole bunch of maps selected because I've already downloaded these, and you'll have probably a smaller selection of those. Easy, normal, hard, or no bots, which is good for practicing, just learning the map and stuff like that. But let's not do that right now. If you go to play online, you'll have the same exact thing, except you'll have a list of servers. In this case, there are 14 pages of servers, and they're all pretty well populated. You can sort by game mode. In this case, there are 4 main game modes. I think in the future they might have a jailbreak or trouble in terrorist town, etc., etc. But for now, these are the 4 game modes that you can sort by. So if I want to find a gun game match, I go there and go to the first page and see what gun game matches are open right now. I can click from North America to Europe, Asia Pacific. Europe has a few pages, which is actually really nice. Let's do team deathmatch or any game mode. Yeah, they have a lot of lobbies, which is great. Asia Pacific, nothing right now. And you can also, of course, create your own lobby. Now, before we talk about the multiplayer options or lobbies, let's talk about you as a player and what you have access to. So, whenever you start off any match, except for maybe gun game, you're going to have access to a buy menu. And on Oculus, you're going to want to press the thumbstick down to open this buy menu. On Vive, you're going to want to press the touchpad to the right, and on Windows Mixed Reality, you'll press down on the touchpad to open up your buy menu. Right here, it has the amount of money that you have to spend. If you're starting off a match of Search and Destroy, you're generally going to start off with $900 unless you just came into the lobby mid-game. On Oculus, you'll use your right thumbstick to navigate the menu, and then click down on your thumbstick in order to buy. So I'll click buy with the thumbstick, and then I can choose from the weapons that I want here. Excellent, so let's leave that alone for now. Good, so you understand your buy menu now. Let's talk about some of the things that you start off with as a default. If you take a look at your left hand, you should have a wristwatch right here. This wristwatch tells you some pretty important information. So that red line indicates how much health you have. Next to it on the left, there should be a white line that indicates how much armor you have when you buy it. Let me see if I can buy any here. I can. So for $650, I buy a light armor vest. And for $1,000, I can buy a helmet and armor as well. So that white line indicates how much armor I have. If you get shot, those lines will go down according to what is damaged, your armor or your health. It also tells you if you've killed somebody. So if you're in multiplayer or you're shooting against bots, if you get a kill, this will turn red and indicate which player you killed. It'll generally show their profile picture right there. What else can you do? Well, if you're trying to communicate with just your team, you could try just speaking like you're doing right now, as the microphones are on by default, or you raise your right or left hand to your head and press the trigger and turn on the radio that way. That's how you enable TeamSpeak. So those are some of the basic tools that you have at your disposal right off the bat. Now, something that not a lot of people talk about is player height. Now, if you're on Oculus, adjusting your player height is pretty easy. You simply go to Oculus on your desktop, open up the device menu, go to the right, click floor position, and adjust it accordingly. I play seated the majority of the time, so I'm at 4 feet 8 inches. On Vive and Windows Mixed Reality, you'll have to adjust your floor settings differently. If you're on Vive or Windows Mixed Reality, you should be able to change your floor height in the Steam VR settings. Just go to Settings, Developer, and go down the page. There should be a button called Quick Calibrate, and it should adjust your floor height and chaperone direction to the direction and height of your Vive headset. Another option for you is to use the OpenVR Advanced Settings tool that you can download for free off GitHub. OpenVR Advanced Settings has a lot of useful features, and one of them is to adjust your floor height. It's extremely fast and easy to use. Now, before we jump into an online match or talk about online matchmaking, let's talk about the weapons and how to use them in the 3 different types of headsets. As you can see, there's a wide selection of weapons in Pavlov VR. Over here we have our rifles, we have submachine guns and shotguns, we have our sidearms and grenades, and as well as our light machine guns. Let's leave that alone for now. Now, let's talk about weapon placement and how to carry your actual weapons. In Oculus, you use the grip button to grab your rifle. In Vive and Windows Mixed Reality, you'll use the side bumpers. I think you can also use the trigger to grab a weapon. So again, with two-handed weapons, you can generally put them on your back, and that's how you holster them. You generally just let go of the grip button, and then use the grip button again to retrieve them when you want them. With handguns, it's pretty much the same thing, except at your hip. So, put it on your hip, either one. You can even do multiple handguns on your hips, or knives. And it should work fine. So now let's talk about a couple of exceptions to that rule. There's 2 exceptions. Right now, you can use the Uzi, holster it at your hip, or on your back. You can also use the double-barrel shotgun and holster that at your hip or on your back. Now let's talk about how we actually use these weapons. right off the bat, when you get a weapon, if you spawn at that office location, it'll be empty, it'll be dry. Why? Because you don't have a round chambered. So if you look inside, there's actually not a round in this chamber, so we cock it and then we can fire. Now, the majority of these weapons have semi-automatic and automatic settings, which we'll cover in another video. But for now, if you want to change the weapon from automatic to semi-automatic, all you have to do on Oculus is click A. And if you're on Vive, all you have to do is click left on the right-hand trackpad to change your firing mode. Now, as you just saw, there's a couple of ways to chamber a round. You can do it manually, like that, or press B, or whatever your drop clip button is. So it's empty now, and you're good to go. The first time you always have to manually chamber the round though. It's also worth noting that this mechanic is pretty useful if you're in a firefight. So say that you're shooting, you need to reload, or you want to just get a fresh mag in there. Notice how it keeps firing, but if you fire until it's dry, then reload, you'll be greeted with a click, which is very bad, especially if you have to clutch, right? So make sure you chamber around and then continue. You don't have to do it if you're not completely dry. Great. But let's also talk about grenades. The basic grenades are the frag grenade, obviously. That is about 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. There you go. 5-6 seconds, give or take. We have the flash grenade. If you don't have armor, it will damage you, as you can see by your wristwatch there. But if you don't want to be hit by it, obviously, go ahead and take cover. All your enemies will be flashed. And of course, we have the good old smoke grenade. Takes about 3 or 4 seconds to actually trigger and release the smoke. Good stuff. It'll last for about 10 to 15 seconds if I'm not mistaken. Let's talk about one more thing that's really important for reloading and arming your firearms. Many of these weapons can be manually reloaded by taking out the magazine and replacing it with a new one. But if you notice with the M4, that's not the case, so what do you have to do? On Oculus, you hit B, or you hit down on the trackpad if you're on Vive or Windows Mixed Reality. Replace the mag, cock it, fire. But there are other weapons that require you to manually take out the mag, such as the AK-47. You bring the AK-47 over here. If you click B, you'll notice that it's not falling. If you click down on your trackpad, it's not going to fall. You have to manually take it out using the trigger, replace it. We can go over some of the handguns that do this as well. Great, we have to manually drop it, put it back in. But if we grab, for example, an Uzi, I don't know if it qualifies, it's a submachine gun, but you'll notice that you can take it out manually or drop the clip. Now, a few of these weapons have to be held by 2 hands to fire, otherwise they're going to fly out of your hands. Let's take a look at those. So the first one to look at is the Car 98. So if you don't hold it with 2 hands, it'll just drop because of the recoil. You have to hold it with 2 hands. The other one is the Op. As you can see, it'll just go flying. So those 3 rifles have to be held by 2 hands, otherwise they're just going to go flying. Now, in general, you're going to have to learn how to use these weapons one by one and play with them until you understand how the mechanics work and you feel comfortable with how they function. Each one of these weapons has its own pros and cons and takes time to get used to and adjust to its settings and mechanics. And if you watch the other video that I upload, you'll understand more clearly how to reload and adjust those settings to your liking so that you perform better in an actual game. Okay, and that's the basics. I know that's a lot of information, but we're barely scratching the surface of all the content that's available in-game. I know we haven't talked about any multiplayer stuff or gone into any actual maps yet. That's okay. In future videos, I'm going to discuss all the game modes, and I'm going to show you how to go through those and try to get good fast. Pavlov is an amazing game, and I can't stress enough the fact that it's barely an alpha right now, and beta is coming very soon within the next few months. and there are essentially unlimited maps, tons of game modes, lots and lots of content that's still to come, and constant development updates happening every month. So keep in mind, these patches come out every 3 months or so, and the player base is growing steadily. I think today it just hit its peak of 1,000 concurrent users, which is great, with more people coming every single day. Hopefully you will be among those. So again, I know it's a lot of content, but really this is bare bones. I wanted to keep it stripped down and to the bare minimum of what you need to start off, and avoiding a lot of the main beginner mistakes. I look forward to seeing you in my other videos and hearing your comments about what I could add, what I messed up on. Bear in mind, this video is for the alpha, and I'll be making updated videos as the beta and final release come out. So yeah, just let me know what you want to hear more about or learn about in future videos, and if this video was helpful to you, go ahead and leave a like, maybe subscribe and hit the bell button. If not, totally fine. I hope I see you in the lobby sometime. I'm really excited to see more players in this game. Keeps me on my toes and keeps the community growing, which is awesome. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Mr. X. It's been a pleasure. See you next time.